A giant meteorite wiped Sodom off the face of the earth, and it may have been even larger than the Tunguska meteorite. Pieces of melted glass, charred by high temperatures, grains, and bones. All this was found during excavations on the hill of Tall el-Hammam in the Jordan River Valley. It was there, 3,600 years ago, according to the authors of the study, that a huge space boulder destroyed the biblical city of Sin. This news became a real sensation a few years ago. An article published in an authoritative publication received more than 300,000 views. Incredible success. But at the same time, the authors were subjected to a barrage of criticism. Why was the resonant article retracted 3.5 years after publication? And what could have been the cause of Sodom's death? And the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone, and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. This is how the book of Genesis describes the death of 2 biblical cities that have become symbols of vice. But did Sodom and Gomorrah really exist? And if so, where exactly were they located? In the Old Testament, the place is indicated too vaguely. On the eastern bank of the Jordan River, in the Dead Sea region. In ancient times, it was called Salty. Ancient authors mentioned the cities of Sin without reference to specific toponyms at all. Scientists have been searching for their ruins for centuries. 100 years ago, archaeologists finally announced they found Sodom. This is the ancient city of Bab Edrar. Its ruins were discovered on the southeastern shore of the Dead Sea in 1924. From fragments of fortress walls, archaeologists determined that the buildings were damaged by fire. Therefore, the city of Bab Edrar was associated with the biblical Sodom. But later this version was abandoned because the time of the death of the cities did not match. Bab Edrar was destroyed around 2350 BC, and Sodom, according to many biblicists, disappeared from the face of the earth several centuries later. Bab Edrar is not the only contender for the title of the biblical city. In 2007, scientists marked a new point on the map, the mound of Tel el-Hammam, northeast of the Dead Sea. A staunch supporter of the version that these are the remains of the legendary Sodom is American archaeologist Stephen Collins. He claims, "There are many clues in the Holy Scriptures, and they all lead to Tel el-Hammam." The Bible mentions 25 geographical objects by which Sodom can be found. For example, in the book of Genesis, it is described how Lot looks at the Jordan Valley, irrigated with water. Where could he do this? I think either in the city of Bethel or in the city of Ai. And further, it is said that Lot went from there to the east. That's exactly where Tel el-Hammam is located. Even the time matches. Excavations confirmed that a large city on the hill, like Sodom, was destroyed in the middle of the 16th century BC. Under a 1.5 metre layer of soil, the ruins of a palace, fortress walls, and ancient streets were preserved. Everything indicates that there was once a developed city in this place. Some finds shocked archaeologists. Traces of the destruction of stone buildings clearly indicated a terrible catastrophe. Raw bricks either bubbled or completely melted. The temperature, melting of the brick, found in this place, is about 2000 degrees Celsius. But at that time, if we are talking about the period before our era, such melting temperatures were simply inaccessible to people, because they could, yes indeed, somehow melt the same furnaces to a temperature of about 1000 degrees. The found ceramic shards also differed from the artifacts that archaeologists had previously dealt with. Fragments of ancient utensils were covered with a crust of glass. In addition, various minerals were found on the ceramics, which have not quite been clarified origin because in those areas where this ceramics is located, in the Dead Sea region, such minerals are absent. But the real sensation was the discoveries of geologists. In the soil of Tel el-Hammam, they found salt deposits and particles of so-called shocked quartz. Such small sand grains are formed only under ultra-high pressure when the crystalline structure of the mineral is destroyed. The puzzle finally came together. American scientists compared the facts and realized what had happened. el-Hammam was destroyed by a meteorite. Since there was no huge crater left apparently, the guest from space exploded in the atmosphere. Then, a huge fireball fell to the ground and burned the city. And after some time, the ruins were covered with salt. The explosion that occurred in el-Hammam provoked a certain wave of water from the Dead Sea. And as we know, the Dead Sea is extremely salty. Thus, this water from the sea penetrated the territory of this place, and salt deposits were formed. The version with cosmic bombardment seemed very consistent. In 2021, the findings of the researchers were published in an authoritative scientific journal. In the article, the catastrophe in el-Hammam was compared with the fall of the Tunguska meteorite. The publication caused a huge resonance and then provoked a powerful wave of criticism for falsifying facts and lack of evidence. The most ardent opponent of the Sodom meteorite theory was American physicist Mark Boslow. The authors of the work used his own model of an air explosion, but interpreted it with errors. In addition, the samples of minerals and rare earth metals that were allegedly found during the excavations do not inspire confidence. And of course, the comparison with the Tunguska meteorite does not stand up to any criticism at all. The article distorts the facts about how the explosion occurred over the Siberian taiga and what scientists actually discovered after it. Critics also doubt the authenticity of the photographs for the article. If you look closely, traces of the use of a graphic editor are noticeable on the images. Otherwise, it is impossible to explain the origin of strange, repeating graphic elements everywhere. But perhaps the most questions arose regarding human remains. Archaeologists, tried to prove that in the territory of el-Hammam, an ancient city, there was life, people lived, and as evidence, they cited skeletal remains of the hip joints, remains of the skull, and other bones of the skeleton. But again, radiocarbon analysis and other studies have proven that these bones do not belong to humans at all. As a result, in April 2025, the scandalous article was retracted. The theory of the Sodom meteorite was recognized as untenable. So what really happened in el-Hammam? What unknown force destroyed the ancient city? For now, this question remains unanswered, as does another one. Is el-Hammam really the biblical Sodom? So far, there is no irrefutable evidence in favor of this hypothesis either.